Joining me now, Donald Trump's former attorney, Michael Cohen. He's the host of the Mea Culpa podcast and the author of the book, Revenge. Michael, you know Donald Trump very, very well. Do you think in your mind that he was ever going to opt for an option of taking a settlement instead of battling this out in public?
No, so Donald's position is never to settle, ever, because he thinks it's a sign of weakness. Unfortunately, he didn't have anybody around him to guide him properly. He's like a petulant child that just keeps sticking their finger into an electric socket. And then you keep saying, don't do it, you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it. But nevertheless, he's going to do it anyway, because in his mind, he knows better. And then you have somebody, for example, like a Boris Epstein, who will turn around and will say to him, yeah, you're right, Donald, stick your finger into the socket. It's good, you can do it. Instead of guiding him like many of us used to in the past and say to him, no, you can't do that. All right, think about how many of these matters right now would not even exist had he listened to somebody who was providing him just a scintilla of good advice. Just a scintilla.
And I think a lot of people look at this and wonder, was anybody telling him to just give the documents back? And this reporting really confirms that people were. And according to the Washington Post, this was just one of several times that those lawyers tried to move Trump to prevent what basically unfolded in court. When you hear that, what do you think got Trump to the point where holding on to documents was more important than staying out of real legal jeopardy here?
First of all, I don't buy the nonsense that people were telling him not to hold on to it. Number one, he wouldn't listen. But number two, nobody really has, the cojones enough to turn around and to tell Donald that you need to send it back. In fact, the proof in the pudding is that you had people like Evan Corcoran, or you had people like Bob, the other attorney who signed affidavits to the government. Christina Bobb, right, stating that they had searched the premises, that there were no documents that were left on Mar-a-Lago or in other locations that Donald had control over. So I don't buy the story that people were telling him to return it. Now, that doesn't mean that there wasn't one person that was giving him good advice that he was ignoring. That I'm sure there was definitely somebody. But for the most part, most people don't have what it takes in order to tell Donald that you're wrong, you got to do this, because Donald doesn't want to hear it. And if you do say it, he just terminates you.
Well, yesterday we saw him really projecting this sense of confidence. He went out to the Versailles Cafe in Miami. He was surrounded by the crowds. He did another speech later. But his former chief of staff, John Kelly, who, by the way, doesn't really talk that often, right? He told the Washington Post, quote, and this is a direct quote, excuse the profanity, he said, he's scared shitless. This was the way he compensates for that. He gives people the appearance he doesn't care by doing this. For the first time in his life, it looks like he's being held accountable. Up until this point in his life, it's like, I'm not going to pay you. Take me to court. He's never really been held accountable before. Do you agree, Michael, with John Kelly? Do you think Trump tonight is scared?
Yeah, wholeheartedly. John Kelly has nailed it. In fact, today I was in court over at 60 Center Street on the case where I'm taking Donald Trump, the Trump Organization, to trial. My trial starts next month because they refuse to pay legal fees that are owed. So, yeah, Donald does not pay. He will fight you all the way to the end. And like I said, like a petulant child, he will keep sticking his finger into that socket until it really, really hurts. Now, Donald, I'm not talking, of course, that's metaphorically. For Donald, what really, really hurts is when you hit him in the pocketbook. Very much like what E. Jean Carroll did. Now, what did he do? Again, you're so right about that, Abby. He does not accept accountability. So he goes out less than 24 hours after being hit with a $5 million verdict. He ends up going out on CNN town hall with Caitlin Collins, and he says the same thing again and again. And now she's going to refile an additional claim against him. Unless you hit him hard in the pocket, Donald Trump doesn't understand accountability. He is, for the very first time right now, seeing accountability on a multitude of different legal matters.
Yeah, and but we are talking here about jail time. I mean, do you think he could really face that penalty?
Yeah, I think he actually knows that jail in and of itself is probably unlikely. And to be honest with you, a lot of people get angry when I say it, especially the Trump detractors. I don't want to see Donald Trump behind bars. I do want to see him ultimately held accountable for his alleged crimes. And if that means a sentence, I believe that the right thing to do would to put him on a very significant home confinement. And I say that because, understand, Donald Trump, despite the fact that he's dumb, he still spent 4 years getting classified debriefings, and the information that's in his head, he's willing to sell out for a bag of tuna or for a book of stamps to anybody that's there. And he would then pose a grave security risk to our country. And I would certainly prefer the safety of Americans to over, Donald Trump behind bars. As much as I'd like to see that, I would rather see America safe than sorry.
And as you know, the Trump team is now looking for lawyers to represent him in the case in Florida. Do you have words of advice for anyone considering taking that job? Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck, because, so many people have said it and they've been accurate in their statement. Donald doesn't pay. I mean, I've seen that going on for so many years. He does not pay legal fees, whether you are successful for him or not. Now, if you're not, it's an easier reason for him to tell you that he's not paying. But even if you are successful, he just does not like to pay. He has burnt so many of the top white shoe firms. They have no interest. They have no interest whatsoever in representing him. On top of that, he is an incredibly difficult client because he believes that his knee-jerk reaction, his gut reaction, is always right. When, look, we are seeing it right now. His gut reaction to all of this stuff is wrong. And all of this stuff was easily avoidable. If you take the Washington Post article at face value, and I take the bulk of it at face value, this case, all he needed to do to have shut it down was to return the documents day one. All he needed to do after he got caught with the documents, turn it over. Instead, again, like the petulant child scenario, he just needs to hold on to it. He needs to fight. He will fight for stupid things. Now, that of course, that negates, by the way, Abby, what that does is it negates the real reason why he was holding on to those documents.
Well, Michael, we only have a couple seconds left. I do wonder, does it surprise you to not see really any members of the Trump family, Ivanka Trump, Melania, there with him for all of this that has transpired over the last 24 hours?
Yeah, well, it's true love. There's nothing else I can say about that. Nothing like having your family behind you when the chips are down.
All right, Michael Cohen, thank you very much for joining us.